Harriet Tubman was once credited as saying, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." The vast majority of our current population doesn't know or understand that the agenda we're currently living under is intent on enslaving humanity on such a massive scale that, aside from the freedom in Christ, there will be no chance of physical escape. While the population sits on forced house arrest, far away from what we once knew as a normal life, the so-called leaders of the world are engaged in carrying out a plot that will make every man, woman, and child a slave to the beast system. If you're one of the few that are awake, you already know what their ultimate goals are. The current state of the world has absolutely nothing to do with a physical virus that may or may not give people symptoms of the common flu or cold. What it has to do with is a totalitarian takeover of humanity on such a massive scale that the average person's mind can't even comprehend it, and the agenda is moving quickly. In a matter of a few short weeks, the powers that be have successfully isolated humanity in order to push their agenda forward undetected. While society sleeps, 5G is being installed in every school, nursing home, public building, city block, and country road. If you didn't already know, 5G is the ultimate control grid that will be used to fully enslave the masses into a constant state of surveillance and obedience to their government. If you don't consent to their plans after these forced lockdowns begin to slowly lift, the 5G 60mm microwave radiation will be used to track you, punish you, or worse. Meanwhile, AI is learning everything about you and your family. The plans are for AI to take over humanity. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. It's a known and highly published fact. However, without engaging the 5G control grid that they're currently installing everywhere around us, AI cannot succeed. Right now, the temperature of the world is being taken by AI and reported back to those in power. This makes it important that you publicly voice your dissent and consent refusal. More on that in a bit. But the agenda goes beyond just these things, as if they weren't enough in and of themselves. World leaders will soon demand that everyone take a mandatory experimental biometric vaccine that will contain a certain type of nanobot that will link your body directly to the 5G grid. Once a person takes this injection, there will be no escape from a lifetime of totalitarian slavery. You won't be able to remove the nanobots from your body, even if you change your mind after taking the injection. Beyond that, small family businesses, farms, and traditional jobs are being destroyed from our realities in order to force people to rely on their governments in order to survive. They absolutely want a society of slaves that leans on government for all of their basic human needs to be met. So what do? What we're living under is a powerful pagan transformation spell. But it's a spell that can only work through the population's consent or inaction. This is where we, the awoke minority of the world, need to step up and take responsibility for the present and the future. Instead of spending our time and energy on complaining about the situation, we need to start spending the same amount of energy and taking real, effective action. This is how we will break the spell. The first thing you need to do is use the tools that we have at our fingertips. If you have social media, use it, but not just to complain and get shares. Use it to show your absolute consent refusal directly toward the powers that be. We're now at the perfect time to let every power-tripping leader know that we do not consent to their plans and that they are dismissed. Flood their social media accounts with that exact message every time they post anything. It does make a difference. Don't just do it with random @posts either. Reply directly to their posts and let them know exactly what you think. Let them know that you are not under their spell and that you are breaking it. As we've seen, doing this has already made a small difference when Trump announced that the meatpacking plants must remain open, although we'll see how that actually ends up working out. But we need to do this on a much larger scale, and not only about specific plans or individual issues. We must be clear that we don't consent to any of the agenda and that we are fully aware of what they are doing. But it takes more than social media. Although it's a start, true change won't happen by only using social media tools. The biggest changes will happen on the streets. But this doesn't mean that you should organize protests where you beg your leaders to give you permission to live your life again. This kind of activity only further feeds into their Luciferian control and the transformation spell that they've perpetrated on us. It's important to remember that our streets are ours. Our businesses are ours. Everything belongs to us. It is all given to us as a gift from God. This spell we're under and the people behind the spell are trying to take away our gift and claim it for themselves. Do not allow it. First, take off the ridiculous masks. Don't consent to mask wearing under any conditions or any situation. Simply do not put up with it as a new reality. If a critical mass begins to reject this key part of the transformation spell, the mask-wearing control system will start to crumble. If shops and stores force you to wear a mask, don't go into them. Figure out another option. Get resourceful. Critical thinking is not dead. Get out of the prison that Lucifer and his earthly minions known as government officials have put you in. 1 John 4:4 tells us that he who is in you, which is Christ, is greater than he who is in the world. Don't forget this fact. Then start talking to people one-on-one. Explain to them what's really going on in the world. Wake up who you can. Those who choose to sleep, you can't help. They will be enslaved by the system and will be perfectly okay with it. But remember, it only takes a small, motivated minority to impact real change. Now, what to do with contact tracers? If you've been blissfully unaware, contact tracers are coming, and they're coming fast. These people will be part of the beast system and are an absolute enemy to your freedom. They are to be treated as such. They deserve absolutely none of your time and 0% of your respect. First, under no circumstances should you ever talk to a contact tracer. Not a single word should come out of your mouth when and if they show up at your doorstep. Pretend that they don't even exist. Treat them like they're the police and you've been accused of murder. Anything you say to them will be used against you. Secondly, stop bringing your phone with you when you leave your home. Your phone is being tracked and measured against other people's phones who have tested positive for coronavirus. The system isn't even hiding this fact. If you cross paths in a grocery store with someone who has tested positive and you have your phone with you, you'll get a knock on your door from a contact tracer who will demand to test you, and if you test positive, quarantine you or remove your children from your home. This is not my opinion, this is fact. If you absolutely must bring your phone with you, wrap it so that a signal cannot get to it or emit from it. If you don't want to invest in a holder that can keep the cell signal out, simply wrap it in foil and attempt to call it. If the phone doesn't ring, you're safe to take it with you. If it does, wrap it a second time. Only unwrap it when you're home or, in the case of an emergency, need to make a call. If you do make a call, make sure you unwrap it in an area where no people are around. This will keep you safe from landing on the contact tracers lists. Even if you don't have a smartphone, you need to do this with your dumb phone as well. If enough of us treat contact tracers as the threat to freedom and humanity that they will be, the system cannot succeed and will break down. We're at a critical tipping point. Right now, every Luciferian agenda is being thrown at us at once. This means that the leaders are panicking. They're trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle in place before we stop what they're doing. We need to put more pressure on now than ever before. We are the antidote to their agenda, and they feel our resistance. Remember, if you're awake, then you are an activist. Play your part, no matter what that part is. Make flyers, speak truth, get local, empower your neighborhood to say no to this entire agenda. You may not yet understand the spark that you can create when you begin speaking truth and getting active. I'm nobody, but I started my website just over a month ago and have now reached over 1 million people with this message. If I can do it, you can as well. Be on the right side of history. History is being written right now every day. It's not a done deal yet. We, the people, get to decide how this agenda plays out. Remember, you are made in the image of the Creator. Have no fear. You were born for such a time as this. Let's take life back now from the enemy, and let's start immediately.